What is up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again with MetalTrenches.com, and today we have a review of Kardashev and The Bearing of Shadows via Metal Blade Records. And hey, if you like to be kept up to date with the best and brightest metal bands and albums from the underground and above, then stick with me by hitting that subscribe button down below. Kardashev is a self-described deathgaze group strongly recommended for fans of a broad variety including Fallujah, Rivers of Nihil, and Alcest. So what the heck is deathgaze anyways?
What is that? What the fuck is that?
As stated by the band, their mission statement is to create the most beautiful heavy music through themes of love, loss, and altruism in the metal spectrum. This ends up being expressed through an interestingly more atmospheric approach to deathcore and death metal that is woven deeply into further fabrics of doom, post-metal, and yes, shoegaze.
Something has changed, something is different, I know.
The result is basically death metal's own take on the post-black and blackgaze movement. So I guess in a way you can think of Kardashev in terms of what Deafheaven is to black metal.
Why do you sell this shit? Thought this place was true metal.
In any case, I really enjoy the particular fusion of ideas that The Bearing of Shadows brings to the table. One that is only further aided by crisp production to really make the atmosphere feel infinite. Seriously, this album just seems to expand in all directions and surround you. But even more importantly, the singing on this album is spectacular. I don't recall hearing quite so much of it on the band's earlier material, but here it is most certainly a highlight with its pitch-perfect angelic tones. Even more so when they're layered in rounds and harmonies.
My father will be love you go, you'll find your way.
These tend to be the default approach on the EP, far more than the harsh death vocals, and probably for good reason given just how powerful they are all on their own. Honestly feels like maybe they've been taking voice lessons or doing something. But this is especially true for opening track A Frame a Light. The compositions of these vocal melodies frequently pulls hard on my heartstrings, making for some very emotionally potent moments. For instance, this incredible transition on lead single Snow Sleep. Stunning. Just absolutely stunning.
I'm very aroused.
Now, without context, many of these segments, what with the drifting sparkle of the guitars and methodical pace of the drums, do in fact sound like pretty standard fare for most post-metal. But there's a lot more than meets the ear when it comes to Kardashev. This same track opens with some of the more techy death metal elements that defines the other side of their sound. Moments like this often remind me more of Fallujah with its mixture of dreamlike aesthetic and heavier tone. Maybe a little Warforged in there as well. And then of course we do eventually also get some heavier vocals over the course of this EP. Sometimes they are of a more higher register and a more blackened variety. Others an impressive deep death bellow complete with lingering death doom guitars. Either way, it's precisely their sparing use that makes them far more impactful than they would be if they were just a constant thing. On early listens, my impatience and overall penchant for all things fast and heavy found me wishing for a lot more in the way of these harsh vocals. But the more I listened, the more I realized that making this change would likely ruin the overall effect. Like dumping a bag of salt in an already perfectly seasoned dish, or a gallon of steak sauce on filet mignon. In fact, I realized I spent my distant review complaining about how down-tempo bands seem to lack any understanding of dynamics, and how less is often more when it comes to those really pit-worthy moments. And yet here I am mentally encouraging the same thing. So really, I think Kardashev have honestly hit the nail on the head with this, making each brief moment of the more intense death metal all the more sinister and imposing as a result. But simply put, these 4 tracks over their roughly 26-minute runtime are the perfect introspective break I needed from my usual barrage of overbearing violence. It was like a perfect little oasis of peacefulness, but without having to sacrifice heaviness at the same time. And to return to the original question of what is deathgaze, it's balance. Too death to be post-metal, too chill to be death metal. Kardashev prefer to play with their sounds somewhere adrift in the ocean between these continents. Turning to my scales, I give the Bearing of Shadows a 9 for enjoyability. I really like this EP, and the more I listen to it, the better it gets. From very first listen, there were key moments that sucked me in, but then each time subsequently, I've just enjoyed more and more of it. I've picked up on other little subtle pieces of it. Some of the songs that I didn't like as much initially, I really like now. But personally, I am still kind of partial to Snow Sleep and Heartache. I give it a 9 for musicianship. It's not so much in the performances, except the vocals. The vocal performance is like the one that stands out to me the most. If you want to hear some of their kind of more technical, more intense performances, you can go back and listen to the previous materials, especially the full-length Peripety. But this 9 is really all about the songwriting, just how engaging it is, how expansive it is, and just how balanced it feels. And then I give it an 8 for innovation. Now, there's a lot of elements here that are very familiar that, especially again, if you listen to things like Alcest, you listen to things like Fallujah, you listen to a lot of post-metal, a lot of this is going to feel very similar, very familiar. That said, I do feel like they're putting an interesting little twist on this that feels worthy of some extra note, and I'll be interested to see if, like Blackgaze and Post-Black, other bands pick this up and run with it. In any case, we're looking at an 8.7 and a B+ for Kardashev and the Bearing of Shadows. Get it again via Metal Blade Records. Y'all, thanks as always for watching, and let me know down in the comments, what did you think of this EP? What do you think of this idea of deathgaze? Is it a cool new direction? I mean, me personally, I'm all about these new fusions and metal continuing to evolve, because it would be kind of boring if everybody just did the same thing over and over again. That is not to say I don't still enjoy me some bands, like I did a review for Cannibal Corpse. Their latest album is very much still Cannibal Corpse. Love it, but I also really seek out these bands that are kind of trying something different. Speaking of which, also check out Warforged I Voice. They're more of like a progressive death metal band, but I couldn't help but feel the more and more I listen to it that there are some parallels going on here with kind of their approach to songwriting and some of the melding that they do. I actually have 2 interviews with them on the channel too, because they're just cool guys from Chicago that are always fun to listen to. But in any case, also stick around. I got plenty more videos coming right after this one. More album reviews, interviews, tier lists, you name it, we've got it. So plenty of reasons to subscribe if you have not already. You can also chat with us on Discord and support on Patreon. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.